And here we are at training 28. It's so exciting. So, I want to talk today about what you can do when you're at work and someone is just plain mean in your workplace. Uh, and most of us have had this experience, I think. So a lot of people will say to me when I suggest that they could create a healthy workplace culture, even when there are mean people in their environment, they're like, no, 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 no. You don't understand the people that I'm working with. And I kind of think that that's pretty fair. Actually, I don't know the people that you're working with. And I always want to hear, what's your story? What is the reason that it feels hard for you to create the work environment that you want? Because I have seen so many people able to shift their work environments and create a healthy workplace culture, even around people that are mean. And I've seen it for myself. I have this one client who is working in a situation where he reported his colleagues for timesheet fraud, and then they just started being mean to him. Like, they won't work with him. They call him names. And he's sort of frantic because he's afraid that because they're targeting him, he's going to lose his job. And so what he's done is he started documenting everything that they're doing wrong, and then they're documenting everything that he's doing wrong. And it's sort of creating this frantic situation. But I totally get why he would be doing this. And I've done that too. I remember there was this one attorney like years ago who I was working opposite with, and anytime he thought I did anything wrong, he would document it, send me a letter, accuse me of having done something terribly wrong, and I would just immediately go into a panic and be like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. Did I do something terribly wrong? Right? And so what I notice most of us usually do is we either get into a resistance place where we're like, no, 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 I didn't do it. I didn't do it. I did it right. I did it right. Or we think the other option is to give in and agree with the person who's accusing us of something, who's being mean, right? So to give in to them or to resist them. These are usually the two options that I see people take. And so I want to teach you a concept that I'm calling the mediation meditation. And this concept is meant to help you address when someone's just being plain old mean at work. And how do you see other options than just resisting and fighting them, or giving in to them, right? When we know that there are there are always more than two options in any given situation. And so how do we see those options when our natural inclination is to be kind of stuck in the either no, 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 or letting them win and giving in and just giving up, right? So I call it the mediation meditation because the first step to it is just to know that there are other options. So in mediation, there's a tool called the BATNA that I've talked about before, and it stands for the best alternative to a negotiated agreement. And so what the BATNA points out is that there are tons of alternatives to resolving a case, right? And you want to look at the best alternative to what is happening right now, or to what your option is in resolving a case. So when we're in a mediation, we go back and forth with different offers to resolve a case. And a mediator goes between one room and another room and back and forth. And then you decide, you're always looking at what is my best alternative to resolving this case, knowing that there are multiple alternatives, right? And so we call this the mediation meditation because I want you to be thinking, when someone's mean, you want to look at the situation that happened. So for example, with me, I get a letter from another attorney who's just mean, and I read the letter and I think in the moment, my only alternatives, like this is just our natural human instinct, right, is to think our only alternatives are to defend ourselves and say, no, 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 you're wrong, or to give in and say, oh, and let him get away with the meanness and let him win, right? We think there are only these two. So you just put yourself in a place. You don't do it immediately when you experience the mean thing, right? You let your brain freak out for a little bit and then you make a shift, right? So once you can separate yourself, once you can be in a externally safe space. You put yourself in an externally safe space as soon as you can. So for me, I just get a letter. I'm already in a safe space, right? And then you separate yourself from the letter a little bit and you just meditate on the moment of what happened, on the literal moment of where you were when it happened. Where was everybody sitting? What were you surrounded by? Who was in the room with you? Anything that is just literally what we call in coaching the pure circumstance, just the literal everything around you. So for me, I get a letter. I'm holding a piece of paper. I'm sitting in a conference room in a chair, holding a piece of paper, right? You eliminate the charge of the situation and you go to total neutral and just describe to yourself the pure total circumstance of the situation to neutrality. And so for me, I get a letter, I'm holding a letter, I'm sitting in a chair, there are two other people in the room, I'm totally safe, right? And from this safe space, I can consider what are the 100 options I have in responding to this letter, to this meanness, to whatever it is. Even considering, is this mean or is it desperate, right? I ultimately decided that this attorney who kept sending me these letters was living in a very desperate, afraid place, right? And from that place, can I even consider this meanness? But that's a little bit farther down the road. So you get to a safe space and then you picture the moment when the incident happened. And so like for my client whose colleagues decide not to work with him. So he pictures he's in a room, he's working, and there's nobody there, right? Total safety in that room, nobody's there doing work. Total safety for me. I'm sitting, I'm holding a piece of paper. And then you want to basically make a list of at least 10 options that you like of how to respond to this situation. So we think often, what I was talking about before, that our options are resist or give in. Our options are no or yes, right? And yes and no are two options, two valid options always, right? But you want to list what else your options are. So what I like to do is start a sentence in these different ways and see how to finish these sentences related to the problem at hand, related to the person who's being mean, to the mean situation. So I start a sentence with, you just start one that's no, and you just know you have the no option. No, that's wrong. Then you have one that says, it's possible that, and how do you finish a sentence that says it's possible that related to what the person said? How do you finish a sentence that goes, I'm open to seeing? How do you finish a sentence that says it's irrelevant whether, whatever the person has said? How do you finish a sentence, I look forward to the next time this person says this because? How do you finish a sentence that says, I'm willing to see something in this situation? So one situation that happened with a client was she was in a divorce situation, and her ex-husband, they were in a mediation, and her ex-husband said that he would sign the paperwork if she promised to respect him. And she called me and she was just freaking out. She was like, he's just trying to manipulate me and he wants me to do whatever he says, just losing it. And so I said to her, do you think of yourself as a respectful person? And she was like, of course. And I was like, have you been respectful to him? And she was like, well, he means by respect, do everything that he says. And I was like, does it matter what he means? Or can you just agree that you're going to be respectful by being honest with him when you believe that he's wrong. And she was like, I can totally do that. I can tell him he's wrong in a very respectful way if I want to. I can respectfully oppose when I disagree with him, and I can be respectful when I do agree with him, because she often did. And so when we're stuck in a space of, I either have to resist what they're saying or I have to give in to what they're saying, what they're saying takes control. Their perspective takes control of your perspective. This gives them a ton of power. When you can see the 100 options before you, when you can see how there are options where what they say is irrelevant, where you can see the options of that you're open to seeing part of their perspective and how they might have some validity. When you're open to having them be mean again to serve your growth, then you have control in the situation. So this is the other question that I ask people to ask themselves is, how is this serving you? How is their meanness offering you something that you can look at and that's going to serve you going forward, right? If you're not resisting them being mean, often it has no impact on you. It just means they've decided to engage in this behavior. So when you can see the 100 options, then you can always use somebody else's meanness to serve you instead of to punish you. All right, thanks for listening, you guys. If you have any questions, send them over. Today's going to be my last day of these trainings, but I'm always happy to answer questions when I can. And if you know anybody who is struggling at work, be sure to send them over to us. Thanks for listening.